Welcome to the Sandwich Generation Podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
We always wait and we say hello at the same time.
Yeah. That's okay.
We're going to be talking about real estate today.
I know. And how crazy busy we've been. So that's welcome to the spring real estate market, right?
For sure. Welcome to the spring real estate market. But we have a little bit of twist because we're going to be talking about seniors and what that looks like if you're a senior and you're looking to downsize, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just thought we could kind of share what our current clients have been doing and what their process has been. I mean, obviously we are working with them, so we're helping most of them downsize and figure that out. But I was just mentioning I have 4 current clients that I'm working with that properties are either listed, going to be listed, and 3 out of the 4 are all couples who have moved to senior communities. All 3 different communities. They've kind of did that on their own, where they started searching. And so I think that's pretty cool. Like, we're still seeing a lot of people that are wanting to make those transitions. And out of the 3 that have moved to senior communities, 2 of the couples are in like cottage type situations. So they're independent living.
Yeah.
Moving into active communities where they can still be very independent, but also have that support around them and the social aspects around them and less maintenance.
Right. Less maintenance. Yeah. So that statistic that you said earlier about 60-year-olds, or no, there was a 60 in it. You said in 2060.
Yeah. So by 2060, the population of people 65 and older is going to more than double what it is currently. So that poses, some concerns that we've been hearing the concerns over the last few years about housing shortage for the aging population, the affordability of those, options. We have limited options, and then we have even more or less options that are affordable. So, what's that going to look like when we have even double the population that we currently have looking for that type of housing situation? So
there's a major gap. There's a gap in, you either have to have a ton of money or you've got to be on Medicaid with no assets whatsoever. And then your options are very limited. You're limited to communities that have Medicaid rooms. But we didn't want to come. So we'll talk more about the shortage and everything. I don't like to complain and come with a bunch of problems without solutions.
Right.
So we could talk about what our clients are doing currently, kind of, where they have moved to downsize, and then maybe some other options that our current clients aren't doing, but maybe something that families could think about.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times people hear the numbers that senior communities will put out of like what the cost is, that kind of thing. And I know oftentimes when you actually just break it down like piece by piece of what you might be paying for your taxes, your insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your utilities, like
Maintenance.
that. Yeah, maintenance. Um, and you actually like break those all down and then compare them to what you would be spending, or paying in rent, that kind of thing. It's not as far off as people often think,
Right. Right.
the number you hear at first can be a little bit overwhelming, but
You
when you
also
break
have
it
a
down
lot
like that,
less bills. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you even have to factor in like the groceries and trips to the grocery for your gas and like that kind of stuff. And oftentimes when you're moving into a community like that, a lot of that stuff's going to be provided or part of your cost. And so, yeah, I mean, I think people would be surprised that it may not be such a huge variance in cost of what they think. So,
Sure.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break down where our most recent clients have decided to downsize to. And I always feel like we need to make a disclaimer when we talk about downsizing that we're advocates of aging in place, wherever that place might be. If it's downsizing from the family home, the 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2, 3.5 bath on a basement, to a ranch that has 0 entry from the garage into the house, or or if it's into a senior community, uh, we believe in choice in terms of where people want to downsize
Yeah.
and where they want to age in place.
Yes. Like I have one couple that just I moved them last week, and they moved from a ranch style home. So they could have aged in place in that home, and that was something they considered. But they were a couple that got used to their snowbirds, so they got used to
Yeah.
going to Florida and doing that every winter where they would be gone. And what they soon realized was it wasn't so much the weather that they were missing, it was the social aspect, the friends
Mm,
that they had made in the community. And so they just decided, like, hey, we can have that piece of it all year if we just
without
make that
having
decision.
every 6 months.
Yep. Yep. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, and they really didn't give up a ton of space. They've given up a bedroom and a bathroom, but the cottage they moved into is a 2-bedroom, 2 full bath, laundry room, mudroom, 2-car garage, brand new. You know, they have no maintenance to worry about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's they still have their own space, they still have their own independence, they both have their vehicles. Like, it's not, I people, I think, sometimes have this perception of what that's gonna be like, and it's not always that way. So, just being open to what some of the options and learning what the options are can be really helpful, for
Right.
people. And then I've had others
Yeah.
that have gone to just, another couple that went to assisted living, and so they're in a little bit smaller apartment, but,
Mhm.
they're still, they still have their car and they can go if they want, and Um, but they have that care there in place when they need it too. So, yeah. How about
Yeah. I know Julie is working on a project right now with the couple that you and I met with a year ago,
mhm.
and they weren't quite ready then, which is fine. We stayed in touch with them, and now they're to a point now where they have to move before something happens. They have an emergency, so now it's kind of like the clock is ticking. It's time to move. So they're moving into. Also, I thought when we talked earlier, I was thinking assisted living, but I think they're actually moving into an independent cottage at a senior community here in Indianapolis. And they'll use the proceeds from the sale of their house to help pay for their care, just like many of our clients do.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's that one. Another one, we had moved to another state, to Colorado, to be near her children. And she really had a tough time deciding whether she wanted to leave her friends and, the familiarity here, because daughter had moved out there. She was from here. So daughter had moved out there kind of as a retirement thing, and left mom here, and she was having a good old time, with her community here and visiting art fairs and farmers markets and everything. But her family was all out in Colorado, and she was in this huge house, huge, that she had to maintain on her own. And it just became too much for her. So we initially looked actually at condos here in Indianapolis that she could stay here and be with her community here. And then she took a trip out to Colorado, and she realized she could have all of that in Colorado and also be close to her family. So that's what she ultimately chose. So we got her moved, and then we're working on one now where the clients are already moved into assisted living and memory care. So, and you have others too, right?
Yeah. I have one that's an estate that, unfortunately mom passed, and daughter's not here locally. So I've been helping with that. And then, so currently I have one that's an estate that we're selling completely, but then, there wasn't a move involved. And then a couple that has moved to a community in Noblesville. I have a couple that's moving to a community in Zionsville, and then one that moved to a community in Carmel. So, all three different style communities, different options, different locations, but all what works for them. One thing I just was thinking about when you were talking about the lady that moved to Colorado, I feel like a lot of my clients here recently are, they're older, they're upper 80s. And so their children, the adult children we're talking about, are retirement age themselves and have retired. And so for a while, and this may not be the situation that the lady that you just moved is, but it just occurred to me like, okay, so they, at the beginning of the adult child is beginning of their retirement. And so traveling back to see mom, or mom even traveling maybe out to see them, isn't too big of an issue. But as we all begin to age, and the adult child that's retired, like that's the travel part of it to come back and see mom, I would imagine is getting more challenging and difficult for them as well. Just being able to, for some of those people. So I will,
Challenging
it
and
made me think of it.
expensive.
Expensive. Yeah. We are living longer. So because we had a
That's
lady that was
crazy.
107 at one point. So people live a long time, and we're going to need the housing for it.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. So it was predicted in 2030 there will be a major shortage in affordable and safe housing for seniors.
Mhm.
And so we were talking about that before we got on, and you had some information that is kind of a long-term fix, hopefully, that has to do with basically contacting our local representatives for funding and tax relief for the building of more communities and housing, affordable housing for seniors.
Yeah.
Which I said at some point we'll get on some of our local representatives so they can talk intelligently about the House bills that are on the table. Some of who locally have authored or have co-authored some of the bills. Did you want to add more to that based on what you found?
Yeah. I just, so that we keep hearing about the crisis that's going to happen, or is happening, and it's just going to increasingly get worse. So obviously limited inventory in general, but then also the affordable units. So there are some things that we've been trying to learn and educate ourselves on how we can try to help with this situation. And so one of them is a program called Section 202, which has already been in place. It's supportive housing for the elderly. And like a lot of things, the funding has been reduced over the last few years for those things, which we hear about, which then in turn has limited the development of senior housing because the support and the funding
Yeah.
have been decreased. So we need to just kind of get ahead of that and start talking to the right people and informing them that there are people that care, and we want to make sure when they're coming across and being voted on or whatever, we're hopefully giving them a little more education, because I think even the people that are sitting in those chairs that are getting to say yes or no to these things, they're just not always aware of all of the issues. It would be hard to be aware of all of the things that they're voting on and being an expert on them. So the more we can talk to them about those programs and the crisis that's coming, I think the better off we will all be, and hopefully be able to have some more options for our aging population. But not just that, not just like the programs and things, but locally, a lot of our local neighborhoods and cities don't allow certain types of living
Mm.
situations. Um, and so there's the tiny home craze is a big thing that, people
Y-
were behind. Well, it's become, where people are like, okay, well, how can I have mom and dad living here? And so having the option to build those tiny homes, or what do they call them? AUDs,
Yeah.
yeah,
Adult
what do you guys,
dwelling units,
yeah, those
right?
are
Accessible or adult dwelling
accessible
units? I
dwelling.
need to look that up. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, because, I know there's families that are doing those too for their dependent children, if they have
Hmm.
children that are not able to live on their own fully, but kind of want to have their own space. It's the same thing. So just having some of those options that our local cities and governments would maybe allow more in our neighborhoods. I was telling you, I'm like, I know it's not going to happen in my neighborhood right now because we're not even allowed to have sheds, let alone
Yeah.
an ADU in my backyard. But um,
Right.
it is becoming something that people are seeking out, I think, in the real estate piece, where they're looking for more of those multi-generational homes, or ways that they can have their parents living on the property, that kind of thing. So um
Yeah.
yeah.
Some cities around the United States are also looking at abandoned buildings, like abandoned strip malls, to rehab into affordable housing for seniors. I think that term affordable housing gets a bad name because people think that all this riffraff is going to come into their neighborhood, and they think, not on my block kind of thing. But this is the most vulnerable generation, or the most vulnerable group of people, um, who are in their 80s, and their healthcare is declining, or 80s and older, um, and their health is declining. And in other countries, the aged population is seen as the most respected population. They are almost their knowledge and their experience is coveted, but it's much different in the United States, where, like,
Yeah,
they're not relevant anymore, and it's sad.
it is
um
sad.
I also, I found a statistic that a lot of seniors are spending their cost burden, because they're on a fixed income, and they're spending, in some cases, more than 30% of their income is on housing.
Yeah.
Now, the topic that you were talking earlier about, when you are in a senior community, you don't have the expensive gas and car maintenance necessarily, if you're not driving, and you're taking advantage of their shuttle, or you don't you don't have the trips to the grocery store or the maintenance of the house or your utilities. So there is a lot of that that's rolled into that price, to keep in mind in terms of affordability. But I know a lot of people are seeing waitlist at senior communities, at their senior community of choice. There's one couple who they've have a community that they're ready to downsize. They want to downsize, but the waiting list is like 5 years long.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, what do we do in the interim? They live out of town. Their children and grandchildren live here. What do they do in the interim? They could move here. I guess my best advice would be, take advantage of the seller's market now while you could sell your house for more than what it's probably ever been worth. And then decide whether you want to buy something, because at that point they don't have a mortgage. So they could buy something small that's just sort of a temporary thing for cash, so they don't have to worry about an interest rate on the other side, because a lot of people, we got spoiled with the 2 and 3% interest rates. So now people don't want to leave that and go, to a 7 or 6 or whatever. But they could sell their property now, use the cash to buy something smaller that's temporary here near their granddaughter and their daughter, and then be on that wait list. Now later, this is the investment piece that's coming just to my head. When they do get that call that they have a place for them at the community where they're wanting to move to, they could at that point rent the house out. They could use it as if they move into a community that allows rentals, of course, which is a whole other topic with rental caps and things. But or they could sell it, and and now they've gotten into their senior community. So I'm trying to think of strategies where people could work through being on a wait list, because they're only going to get longer. The wait lists are going to be more prevalent, and the wait times are going to be longer. Meanwhile, we don't know what's going to happen in the real estate market. We know that there's a major shortage of inventory right now. We don't know what's going to happen, in the summer, fall, winter, things like that. So just some
definitely things to consider, because we can tell you what the market is like right now, but we can't tell you what it's going to be like in 5 years. We can do our best to predict, but can't see the future. So why wait? Just take advantage of it now. I can definitely support that, get behind that.
Yeah, and without getting into politics, that you could find arguments on either side, whether we're going into a crisis, and a financial crisis, which would affect the real estate industry, or we're not. Well, what we do know is it's been a seller's market for 10 plus years at this point. And real estate has increased significantly over the last 3 to 5 years. And at some point, is it just always going to be a seller's market? We know that historically the market goes up and down.
So it's good to take advantage while you do know what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that if you are a senior listening or watching this, or you're an adult child helping a senior downsize, and you're trying to figure out what to do, I think that's where our expertise come in. We could work through something like that one that I was talking about, where the wait list is 5 years or whatever, but they want to move here now so they can enjoy time with their grandkids and their daughter. We could work through some strategies for that, and I think that's where kind of our value comes in terms of what we do every day.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, is there anything else you wanted to touch on? We just thought it would be good to kind of give a little update on the real estate market, especially how it affects seniors right now. So,
yeah, I don't think so. I think the key takeaway would be to I don't know what the key takeaway is. To edit that out.
No, I mean the key takeaway is that whether you're feeling this crisis right now or just being aware that it is coming and it likely will affect you or somebody you love, just to start educating yourself on it, right? And I think one of the things you and I would like to do is try to get maybe some of those people that can talk to the crisis and the policy changers, those advocates, those kinds of things, maybe get those people on the podcast to give us a little more insight on what they know, what they're seeing, what the concerns should be, and what people need to know so they know how they want to vote for different things too. So
yes, my local representative, he said he would come on to our show after this session. So it's time to reach out to him and try and get him on the books soon.
yeah, maybe we can find some local developers and planners, like city planners too. That might be kind of cool to hear what they have to share on the situation.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Well, anything more?
I don't think
Share,
so.
follow, comment.
Yep.
Tell us who you want to hear from on the podcast. Put their names down in the comments or give us a comment about who you'd like to hear or what topics you'd like to hear about. We got some new followers on YouTube. That was exciting to see. So we love that. So follow and share with people who could benefit from our podcast.
All right. See you next week.